You know, after years behind the bar, I've seen just about everything. Drunken makeouts, awkward first dates, ugly breakups, people crying into cocktails, you name it. But this one's different. It's dark, it's funny, and it's the kind of karma that makes you believe the universe does keep score. I've told it a dozen times, and every time it gets the same reaction. That slow grin people get when justice hits the right target. So, picture this. It's a Friday night. The kind of night where the music's thumping through your chest. Everyone's yelling over the beat, and I'm working double speed just trying to keep the glasses full. The smell of lime, beer, and cheap perfume is hanging in the air, and the cash register's singing. That's when he walks in. Early to mid-30s, button-down shirt, cologne strong enough to knock over a horse, hair styled within an inch of its life. He had that look, that smirk, like he thought he was the main character in every woman's fantasy. I clocked him right away. You get a sixth sense for trouble when you've been bartending long enough. He strutted up to the bar, leaned on the counter like he owned it, and ordered something smooth. Whiskey on the rocks, of course. The I'm a classy guy starter pack. Then he got to work. He didn't even take a sip before he started scanning the crowd, eyes darting like a predator looking for a target. Every woman he talked to had the same reaction. Polite smile, slow lean back, subtle glance toward the door. One even mouthed help me at me when he wouldn't stop talking. I stepped in with the classic bartender save. Hey, we're closing your tab early, buddy. That gave her an out, and she slipped away. But he didn't get the hint. Oh no. He doubled down. He laughed too loud, bragged about his car, his job, you know, all that filler noise people use when they've got nothing real to say. And then he spotted her. She was sitting at the far end of the bar, alone. Stylish but low-key, scrolling on her phone, nursing a cocktail. You could tell she wasn't there for company. She had that calm, self-assured air. Someone who knows how to handle herself. He made a beeline for her. You could practically see the thought bubble over his head. Challenge accepted. At first, she humored him. Polite small talk, a nod here and there, but her body language screamed, not interested. I kept one eye on them while pouring drinks because something about that guy didn't sit right with me. And then, right when she looked away to check her phone, I saw it. He reached into his pocket, glanced around, and flicked something into her glass. A tiny motion. Quick. Too quick for anyone else to notice. But I saw it, and my heart stopped. For a second, I just froze. I wasn't even sure I'd actually seen it. That little flick of his wrist, that tiny splash. But deep down, I knew. I've seen enough shady behavior in this job to recognize when something's seriously off. My first instinct was pure adrenaline. Call security. Yell. Stop everything. But the bar was packed, music loud, lights low. If I made a scene, half the people wouldn't even know why. And honestly, I didn't want to give that creep the satisfaction of attention. So instead, I took a breath, and I thought, no, you're not getting away with this. Not tonight. She was still distracted with her phone, so I moved down the bar, pretending to wipe the counter. I picked up a couple of empty glasses nearby, keeping my movements casual, like I was just clearing space. Then, in one smooth motion, I swapped their drinks, his for hers. To anyone watching, it looked completely normal, just another bartender tidying up. He didn't notice a thing. A minute later, she excused herself to the restroom, leaving her new drink on the counter. I put a coaster on top, just so nobody else would touch it. Old habit. And then came the moment I'll never forget. He looked at her glass, then at his, and grinned to himself, like he'd just scored some private victory. He raised her drink, the one he'd tampered with, clinked it against his own with this little self-satisfied toast, and downed it in one go. I swear, I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. At first he looked fine, sat there all smug, glancing at the restroom door like he was planning his next move, probably imagining how the night would play out. 10 minutes passed, then 15, and that's when things started to change. He shifted in his seat, blinked a few times, looked confused. His posture slouched, the words coming out of his mouth started slurring. He tried to look composed, but his body had other plans. By the 20-minute mark, he was a mess, sweating, mumbling nonsense, trying to steady himself on the bar like it was suddenly made of quicksand. People nearby started to notice. "Hey man, you okay?" someone asked. He tried to answer, but it came out like gibberish. I leaned on the counter and gave him my best neutral bartender face, that look that says, "Buddy, you did this to yourself." A few minutes later, the woman came back from the restroom. She looked around, saw him slumped over the bar, and raised an eyebrow. "Guess he couldn't handle his drink," I said casually. She laughed, just a small knowing chuckle, grabbed her purse and left without another word. Safe, unharmed, completely unaware of what he'd tried to do. And him? He was done. He was completely out of it, head drooping, eyes glassy, body swaying like he was on a boat in a storm. That smooth, cocky swagger he had when he walked in, gone. Now he just looked pathetic. I called over one of the bouncers. Big guy, built like a fridge but with the patience of a saint. I nodded toward our little Romeo, who was halfway to face-planting into the bar top. "Can you get this guy out of here? He's done for the night." The bouncer gave me a look, the kind that says, "Again?" and lifted him out of the chair like he weighed nothing. The guy mumbled something about how she wanted him, which just made it worse. They carried him out the door, still muttering nonsense, and loaded him into a cab. The driver shot me a look like, "Another one?" I just shrugged. As the door shut and the cab pulled away, I finally exhaled. The noise of the bar filled back in around me. Laughter, clinking glasses, the beat of the music. Just another Friday night, right? Except not. Because for once, the bad guy actually got what was coming to him. No shouting, no cops, no chaos. Just karma doing her job, right on schedule. The rest of the shift went on as usual, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. About how close it came to going wrong. If I hadn't been paying attention, that woman could have been in real danger. It's wild how fast things can flip in this job. One second you're pouring drinks and chatting with regulars, and the next, you're staring at something that could have turned into a nightmare. People always think bartending is just about mixing cocktails and smiling for tips. But honestly, it's half psychology, half security. You learn to read people, like who's having a rough night, who's celebrating, who's lying, and who might be dangerous. That night reminded me exactly why I watch The Room the way I do. I've seen heartbreak, drunken confessions, fights over nothing. But what he did, that was different. It wasn't drunk stupidity. It was deliberate, predatory, calculated. And the thing that made it satisfying wasn't just that he got what he deserved. It's that he did it to himself. The universe doesn't always deliver payback this neatly. But when it does, man, it's beautiful to watch. Still, I couldn't shake this feeling. Half relief, half anger. Relief that she was okay. Anger that guys like him still think they can get away with that kind of thing. When my shift finally ended that night, I sat at the empty bar with a glass of water, just listening to the hum of the fridges and the faint echo of the music still playing in my head. The room that had been chaos a few hours earlier was quiet now. Chairs flipped onto tables, lights dimmed, the smell of citrus and spilled liquor lingering in the air. I looked down the bar to where it all happened and couldn't help but shake my head. I kept thinking about that woman, how she'd walked out smiling, completely unaware of how close she'd come to something awful, and how a small decision, just paying attention, might have saved her from a night she'd never want to remember. But mostly I thought about him, that arrogant, smirking guy who thought he could control the story, how sure he was that he was the hunter, and how in the end he became his own prey. People sometimes ask me, "Do you ever feel bad about it?" And honestly, no, not even a little. What he did wasn't a mistake. It wasn't bad luck. It was a choice. He chose to cross a line most people wouldn't even approach, and the universe, or maybe just a tired bartender with a good sense of timing, made sure he paid for it. I don't know what happened to him after that. I didn't care enough to find out. Maybe he woke up the next morning with a splitting headache and no memory of how he got there. Maybe he spent the day wondering why everything went black so fast. Either way, it was poetic justice. No lectures, no police report. Just the simplest kind of lesson there is. What goes around really does come around. People like him walk into bars all the time, thinking they're untouchable, thinking no one sees what they're doing. But here's the truth, someone always sees. And sometimes karma's wearing a bartender's apron. That night changed something in me. Not in a dramatic, life-altering way. More like a quiet reminder. A reminder that doing the right thing doesn't always mean grand gestures or loud confrontations. Sometimes it's as simple as paying attention and stepping in at the right moment. Now every time someone leans over my bar with that same smug grin, I remember him. And I tell this story because it's not just about revenge or karma or justice. It's about awareness. about looking out for people who might not even know they're in danger. And maybe, just maybe, it's about giving the universe a little nudge in the right direction. So yeah, I've seen a lot of things working behind this bar. But that night, that was the one that proved it. Karma doesn't need an audience. She just needs good timing.